Hello, everyone. My name is Javi Bose, and I'm an intern within the Student Leadership Center. And today I'm here to talk to you about the Student Organization Series, Part 2, which is where we talk about fighting apathy in student organizations. So, a little bit about today, we're going to discuss what apathy is, a few of the causes of apathy, the three levels of apathy, which will make a little more sense as we talk about that later on in terms of implementing that into your organizations. And then obviously some tips and tricks for some tangible resources for you all to take with you to enhance that implementation and for you to make a difference in your student organizations to make them more effective and welcoming and to be a part of and exciting. So before we start, I like to start with quotes. And so I really want you all to think about this one. Fear is better than apathy because fear makes us do something. That's by Emiliano Salinas. And I know you might not necessarily know what apathy means quite yet. And that'll make a lot more sense right now. But for the time being, I want you to think about that. Fear is better than apathy because fear makes us do something. For a quick example here, think about, we'll keep it really simple. Being afraid of the dark, a fear of darkness. When you're scared of something, you're gonna want to do something to get out of that position, right? So if it's the dark, you're gonna want to take action steps to make a difference to get yourself out of that position, out of that uncomfortable um, area. You're gonna turn a light on. You're gonna get out of that space. You're gonna do whatever you have to do to make yourself comfortable in a space, right? And so I know that's very general thinking, but as we navigate through this presentation, I want you to think about that. Think about how you would take those action steps to make that difference, to put yourself in a better space, a more inclusive space, a more comfortable space, right? And think about how you can utilize that um, and put that into your organization, right? Because apathy, it eliminates that, it limits that from being able to take those action steps. And so I'm here to talk about how we can take steps to make those differences and get yourself into those more comfortable positions, right? So keep that in mind as we continue to go through this. We learn what apathy is and how we can deal with it as student organization leaders. So, what is apathy? Apathy is a loss of passion, emotion, or overall interest into an organization or group or even life over time. So when you think about right now, right, in the kind of time that you're going to be listening to this or at the live presentation, as this is the online version, but we're getting around midterms here at Kent State, right? Where it starts to get real stressful. You're really going to have to prioritize your time and really think about what's important to you. The academic success, the organizational success, are they going to collide? Are they going to gel together? This is where apathy comes in as a student leaders, as student organization participants, attendees, general members, whatever you want to call them as a part of your organization. This is the time apathy sets in. It's a perfect prime example of where it takes place. And you think about where it can get a little stressful. And I'm going to talk a lot about stress and overwhelmed and um, trying to figure out balancing your life, right? Um, and apathy can challenge that. It's when you lose that passion or emotion because you have to figure out that balance. You're going to start having to cut things. You're going to have to really figure out what you really truly care about and what you want to be a part of, right? Um, and it's difficult. It's difficult for student leaders. It's difficult for general members, and it'll make a little more sense when I talk about the three types of apathy, the thirds. But this is where you get a little disconnected. I think is a really good word to use here in apathy. You start to lose that severe passion to make that difference. You start to get a little lazy. You start to kind of do the bare minimum just to get by for a Wednesday meeting or whatever day meeting, right? It's about how you can grow within this, how you can navigate through this, and still be engaging, still be um, fun without having to like overbear yourself and drain yourself so far where you lose that interest, that emotion. The organizations you're overseeing, you're passionate about it, whether it's a fraternity, sorority, a cultural organization, whatever it may be. You're in it for a reason. You're in to make a difference, to leave an impact on other people, especially yourself, to grow as an individual. But when you have to balance all these things, it can get a little difficult, right? And so that's what really apathy is. It's about how do we balance those things, because apathy happens no matter what. How can we manage it? How can we manage it in ourselves? How can we manage it in our organizations to make that difference, to continue making a warm, welcoming experience for ourselves and for our organization members? So, what does it look like? I kind of led into that a little bit, but it can look very similar from person to person, but it also can look very, very different. A lot of it comes down to prioritization on what you prioritize in life as a president versus what you prioritize in life as a member who's just attending to really reap the benefits of the organization and what it provides for them. Um, but most importantly, apathy takes place in the individual. And so, what do I mean by that? I mean that stress, that overwhelm of whatever it may be for that specific individual, it happens in a person before it happens in the organization. Because once it happens in that person, and we talk about that prioritization and the decision making that they have to make to equate that balance, that's when it bleeds into the organization. We see the loss of passion, the loss of intentionality, and we begin to separate from what we truly care about and what we really want to make the difference and leave our impact in. And so, like I said, it can look different in a lot of people. Like I said, when you look at a president, often you're going to prioritize an organization because that's something that you truly, truly care about and you want to make that difference. But if I'm a organization member, I just joined maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't really have any stake in going or participating. I just go because I enjoy it. I have fun. The likelihood of me like willing to cut that is significantly higher than a president or executive board member. Okay. So I really want you to think about how my individual stake into the organization, individual personality that has my involvement in there really plays a role into that balance in the apathetic or the apathy that takes place when it comes to separation and what to cut and what to prioritize in stressful times. So when I talk about stressful times, a lot of things can come to mind: educational stress, mental health, lack of sleep, bad eating habits, or not eating at all, absorbing potentially bad habits of those around you. They're all consistent with individual experiences and individual decision making. And they all play a role in the apathy of yourself that then leads to the organization, right? Right now, we're going to focus on ourselves. Excuse me. We're going to focus on ourselves and the decision making and the whether we what we're going to cut, what we're going to prioritize. We're going to focus on ourselves right now, and then we'll look at how that plays a role in organization differences. I kind of alluded to it a little bit ago. We're going to dive into the organization in the second half of this presentation, but right now, these are things that you deal with individually, right? Education, educational stress. So if we talk about the midterms, whether it's finals week or you got a paper that week, we talk about the toll on mental health. That's individual. I believe it happens to everyone, and I would stand by that. But everyone deals with mental health differently. Um, and then these things they snowball, right? Then it leads to a lack of sleep, and then you're not eating well or not eating at all potentially. And then you absorb the habits around you. So if you're with a group of people who have a big project due and you're really stressful, you're going to kind of feel that energy and absorb that energy of, oh my gosh, I'm really stressed. I'm really panicky, maybe a little bit of anxiety kind of showing out. It's really consistent with the causes of burnout, right? When you have all these things you're jumbling around, your relationships, your organization involvements, your executive board requirements, your um, academics first and foremost, and then just taking care of yourself, which is more important than all of those. It gets to be a lot, right? And this is kind of where the initial um, intentional experiences of the individual really start to lead to that causes of apathy that then creates that disconnect between what you prioritize, what you have to cut, etc. So With all that being said, for those of you online, after I read these directions here, I'm gonna let you pause the video and you can do this individually. But for those in person, we're gonna do a grab a partner, oh, excuse me, and take 5 minutes each to discuss the number two and number three there of the questions. And then the number four there is just to make sure that you leave time for both. So you're gonna take the next 10 minutes or so and discuss how have these causes of apathy played a role in your life as an individual. So think about what we just talked about, the mental health, the academic stress, whatever it may be. If you're online, go ahead and pause the video and really think about how those play a role in your individual life, and then how it leads into your role as a student leader. Okay. So if you're online, go ahead and pause and take the next 10 minutes and really think about how both of those questions play a role within each other. Okay, welcome back. I hope that you were able to really delve into those questions and think about apathy and how they play a role in our daily lives, and how our daily lives really structure our lives as student leaders, and the dedication that we have to organization and involvements and other people. And I hope that was really refreshing and also a bit challenging, because self-reflection is important to growth and development as student leaders. And so if you see where apathy is taking place in your life, you can learn how to manage it, especially as we go through some tips and tricks here in a little bit on how you can personally manage that in your individual and then in your life, or I'm sorry, and then in your organization. So now we're going to talk a little bit about levels of apathy. So I talked a bit that there are 3 different levels, which is the top third, the middle third, and the bottom third. So for all of you watching this this presentation, or at the live presentation provided by the Student Leadership Center on March 8th, you all are more than likely top thirds. You're the presidents, you're the other exec members, you're super, super involved in your organization. You really want to drive to make a difference and leave an impact as a student leader on that organization and the impact that has on other people. There's also the middle third, and a few of you might be these individuals, but it's the people that consistently participate, consistently attend in the meetings and presentations and opportunities that your organization provides. If it's a fundraiser and it fits in their schedule, they're going to be there and they're going to participate, no questions asked. They're the kind of the model members that you really want to have a part of your organization, that really kind of push it forward, and it makes the top third really feel refreshing and accomplished. So the bottom third are your members that are there to really reap the benefits the organization provides. So I talked a little bit about it earlier, but they're there to have a good time. They're not really there to put forth a ton of energy, a ton of participatory involvement into the organization. They're there to have fun. They're there because they enjoy it, but they're not necessarily there to make a difference. And the top third and the bottom third, they don't necessarily get along technically, because the top third really puts in a lot of work into the organization to make it thrive, and the bottom third just kind of, in a way, feeds off of it. And I don't mean to come off negative. This is a theory that's been put together, but they don't necessarily get along. What I mean by that, they just don't really feed into the same ideology, and they kind of butt heads in a way and frustrate each other. Because in the bottom third, they look at top thirds as overachievers and like tryhards, we can say. But the top thirds and bottom thirds, they look at the bottom thirds as lazy and just there because they have to be, or not even want to be, lazy and just don't participate. And so you can see how those don't mesh together well. But then we have our middle third there, and we'll talk a little more about each of them individually. So top thirds, like I said, they're the presidents and exec members, and more than likely all of you watching this today. They love the high pressure roles necessary to run an organization. They want the organization to be successful and thrive. They put in extra work, extra hours. They put together the meetings with faculty and staff members. They put together the exec meetings, the agendas. They want to see the organization succeed at all costs. When I mean by all costs, they would often risk academic success for what the organization, for that organization's success. I know I was a top third. I would often put off a paper to make sure my organizations would be successful and prepared for that week, that day, whatever it may be. I would put on the wait to the last second to write a paper or do an assignment, just so I knew that I could guarantee the success of the organization. And so it's not necessarily healthy, it's not necessarily good, but it's how we think, it's what we prioritize. And that's just how we are, right? It's how the top thirds are. You work constantly to change the bottom third, because like I said, they don't necessarily get along. And there again, like I said, you are all likely top thirds that are watching this or participating in this presentation. Bottom thirds are what I would call the polar opposite of top thirds. They really focus on themselves, not necessarily organization. They take what the organization gives them, but they don't give very much back, if any at all. They're just there, right? They kind of, what I like to say, bottom thirds, they're just existing. They go to the meetings, they don't participate in the meetings. If you have pizza, they're absolutely going to eat the pizza, right? But they're the first to criticize, but the last to enact change. So if something goes well or something goes, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. If something goes wrong, they're going to be the first to point it out and say, we need to fix this, we need to fix this. But they're not necessarily going to make the changes to have that fixed, excuse me. Go ahead and grab it. Sorry about that. It's about being fluid in presentations, right? So like I said, bottom thirds simply exist, and they're there to take whatever is there for them. So I talked a little bit about the pizza party. They're going to be the first ones there, first ones in line to eat that pizza, but they're never going to come to a committee meeting to participate, to make that change in that specific organization. And I apologize if that was distracting for you. To kind of recap that real fast, they focus on themselves, just kind of take what the organization gives and doesn't give back, and just really come off lazy and uncommitted, and just there to again reap the benefits. The middle third is the third that you want to spend your most time on as student organization leaders and as top thirds. These individuals are willing to enact change. They're going to participate and be great members of your organization. Being a part of these organizations are significant to their individual identities, and they're amazing. They are going to be the ones that help you enact change. That if you're going to ask a question in a participation group, they're going to be the first to raise their hand. They're going to be the people that you want to count on, right? So what's the caveat? What's so they can't be perfect, right? So what's the caveat with that? Middle thirds do it on their own time. So if we go back to thinking about the midterms, and if this is like the organization or the general meeting that they're attending, if this doesn't make sense in their timeline and in their personal agenda, they are not going to participate. They're not willing to give up something else to be a part of the group. And it has to fit perfectly into their agenda, perfectly into their timeline. And what I mean by the timeline, I mean by specifically like their time, right, of utilizing and being able to participate and engage in the meeting itself, but also they have to be willing to get something out of it. They're not going to participate in these meetings just because they're going to want to get something out of it, like a tangible outcome, which I think that makes sense for all of us, right? We're in these organizations for a reason, whether it's to leave an impact or a legacy or whatever it may be, but you're doing it because you're passionate about the organization that you're a part of. So if that's the situation that doesn't make sense for the middle third, you're not going to get the participation needed and wanting out of the middle third. Specifically, their life is created on balance and are not willing to jeopardize that for the good of the group. If it doesn't fit into their teeter-totter where it remains balanced, if they are on this and it starts to kind of weigh down the other side, they're not going to do it. They like to keep that balance, that straight line mentality of where they can make a difference. So how do you maximize all thirds? So we talked about what apathy is and understanding kind of that it happens, right? It's gonna happen. It's how do we manage it? Um, we're gonna explore how to navigate apathy, which we really have started to talk about. Excuse me. Um, we're gonna learn how to motivate each third and specific to their strengths that they have. And also, we're going to talk about run a successful and meaning making organization because by doing so, you have to deal with the apathy that happens on all levels, individual at the top and also at the bottom. Apathy takes place at all levels of organization and all levels of thirds. It's how do you take that, run with it, navigate through that, continue to motivate and leave a meaning making or lead a meaning making organization that's going to make a difference on our campus. So now we're here to the part that you really care about, right? It's the tips and tricks on what you can take with you to implement into your organization. So like I alluded to, you cannot avoid apathy. It will happen to you and those around you. It's about how do you manage that and create an inclusive and engaging environment for the individuals taking part in it. So how do you do that, right? You want to promote positivity and calmness. You want to find that balance when you think about an organization meeting. I know in mine, I was a leader of the Latino Student Union at my undergrad, and a lot of our meetings were educational, but we struggled to find that balance between educational and social, where people would come to have fun, but also to learn. So you really want to find that balance in educating topics and then the social environments, right? If you are going to have a heavy topic, try to kind of combat that with some candy or some pizza, whatever it may be, to really kind of find that balance of, yeah, it's a heavy topic. Yeah, we're going to be talking a lot and learning a lot, but also you're promoting a environment that's calm, that's positive, and that people are going to be able to learn and thrive in. So you're going to want to create a structure that maximizes each third's potential. And what I mean by that is, remember, top thirds won't need much motivating. They're really self-driven. They're driven on making sure the organization is successful. But they do need that participation from middle thirds to really fuel that drive that can make a difference, right? And so when you have those middle thirds specifically participating and talking in group discussions and activities, it really makes a difference. And you kind of, it rewards the top thirds because they feel like they're doing something right. You feel like you're running an effective meeting. You feel like you're making a difference, which is why we do this, right? Middle thirds, on the other hand, they can be maximized in a couple different ways, specifically short and effective meetings. Again, middle thirds, we talked about balance and maintaining that teeter totter. They don't want to dedicate an hour and a half of their life to go to a general body meeting where they can find that social and educational components. Short and effective meetings, short in terms of not a long time, but effective by hitting all marks, but in that short amount of time. Another thing about reaching out to, so when I talk about you all, I'm speaking specifically about top thirds. um Top thirds will need to reach out to them. Middle thirds aren't going to kind of come up to you. They're not going to sign up for meetings or I'm sorry, for specific year-long roles. But more specific, they're going to do um roles that are like, oh, April 15th, we're having this event. Would you mind doing this part of this event? Not planning the whole event from top down by any means, but just having a small part in that because they really enjoy being a part of the organization and dedicating their time. But you have to reach out to them specifically. And then keep the door open to new members to assist their balancing in life. Think about you have a social lives outside of organizations, outside of what you do. It can get a little taxing, right? Of having to balance that. It's a whole nother aspect of life that you have to balance. Excuse me. Keep that door open. Keep that inclusivity and open door to understand, and again, that positive and calm aura that you keep your meetings running with, and be like, yeah, they can absolutely come. And when I mean my day, whether it's a significant other, whether it's a good friend, just be like, hey, I got this meeting to go to. Like, don't create a space where like, oh, I have to go to this meeting. Like, oh, come to the meeting with me. Keep that door open. Make that impact on people that are all over the campus, not specific to one group or one identity. I think can be a very impactful on middle thirds and just the overall success of your organization as top thirds. So what about bottom thirds, right? As top thirds, you really can't spend your time trying to change them because it's not going to work. A lot of times you're going to be burnt out and it's going to lead to frustration of trying to change bottom thirds and their mentality and their aura of what you believe is laziness, right? So we want to focus on kind of just doing what you're doing. You're spending a lot of time doing the right things, but just make sure you're focusing on leading, inspiring, and being yourself. That's really how you got into this position, is that passion and inspiration that you lead others into that organization and the success of that organization. Bottom thirds are always going to kind of reap the benefits of it, but you as a top third are giving them the benefits to reap, right? So just keep doing what you're doing in terms of making a successful organization, because they're going to continue to come. So keep doing what you do best, because that makes a difference and that continues to leave that impact and legacy, as we talked about in part one of the student organization series. So now we just talked a ton. I just really talked at you for quite some time, but I want you to pair and share as well, to kind of wrap some things up, in terms of individual versus organization. That first pair and share was very individualistic in terms of apathy in oneself. And now we want to look at seeing how the three different tiers of apathy and student organizations and how these tips and tricks that we talked about specific to each of those tiers and each of those thirds can make a difference, right? So grab a partner, talk about how can you use these tips and tricks in your own organization, and how will this implementation, how will it enhance your organization? So think specifically organization based now. As top thirds, you run an organization, you've seen how a successful organization can run. How can understanding how to deal with how to deal with apathy, how to motivate middle thirds, and how to navigate working with bottom thirds can make a difference in your organization. Go ahead and pause and take the next 10 minutes to really think about those and how you can make a difference. Okay, welcome back. I hope you were able to really dive into that and see how the tips and tricks we're able to provide you made a difference in what you're striving to do and leaving your impact as a student leader. Like we said, apathy is going to happen no matter what. It's how you deal with it, how you navigate it, and really make the most of it, to leave your impact as a student leader. So now that we understand what apathy is and the importance of it, John Dos Passos is provided this quote here: is the cure for apathy is comprehension. Like I said, there's no way of avoiding apathy. You're gonna have it, you're gonna have to deal with it. But the cure for it is comprehension. It's understanding that it's going to happen and having systems and opportunities in place to navigate through that and continue to make a difference, for you as an individual, as a student leader, as a top third, and also for the middle and bottom thirds of your organization to really grow and experience great opportunities. So to wrap things up here real quickly, remember, it's not about avoiding, it's about managing. Apathy is going to happen. I know I just said this, but apathy is going to happen. It's about how you manage it that's going to make a difference. Keep meetings short, effective, and purposeful for all, and things will run at the highest level. You are putting in the right amount of effort. Just don't spend too much time burning yourself out to have things perfect, because in reality, it's impossible. It is not possible to have a perfectly run organization. You're going to burn yourself out focusing on the bottom thirds and trying to make them participate in this, that, or the other. Focus on motivating the middle third to have them participate and also reap the benefits of what you're trying to provide. And your impact is from as an organization leader and as a top third is going to stem through them, through the middle third, through the bottom third, and throughout the rest of the campus. So keep putting in this effort, but don't burn yourself out trying to make it perfect. Um, and then one of the last two things here is run the organization for those who enjoy it, and those who find interest in it will flock to it. If you keep doing it and keep having that passion that you came here with and joined the organization with, people are going to flock to that because they're going to see, oh, this is really interesting. You care about it. You're passionate about it. And they're going to flock to that. Um, be flexible, be positive, and keep making an impact because the most important thing as top thirds and as student leaders is to make an impact, to leave your legacy, as we talked about in part one. So by doing so, keep being flexible, keep being positive, and people are going to understand and appreciate what you're doing for the organization. So that's going to wrap up our conversation here. I hope you really enjoyed it and really were able to take a lot from it. Because apathy is something that you're going to experience not only through organizations but throughout your entire life. So understanding how you can deal with it and deal with people experiencing apathy at all levels is super important. It's going to really grow yourself as a leader and as an individual as you continue to move forward throughout your life. So thank you for being here today. If you have any questions, go ahead and email us at lead@kent.edu or give us a call at 330-672-2456. There's our website there, and also follow us at Kent State Leads. We would love to have you a part of our learn more about what our office provides and some things you can take advantage of to continue your growth as a leader and as a student here at Kent State. And I wanted to point out my sources here. Unfortunately, I didn't come up with all these theories of the 3 tiers of motivating the middle, the bottom, and the top thirds. It actually came from a book by TJ Sullivan. I think if you are interested in reading more about that, go ahead and reach out to our director and Jessica Roshak. She'd be more than happy to refer that book to you. And so you can learn as a student leader on what it means to deal with apathy in student organization at those 3 levels. Well, other than that, I thank you very much. And I hope to see you very soon. Our part 3 will be on, April 8th. So keep an eye out for that as we talk about kind of transitioning out of your roles as student leaders for the individuals coming in. Thank you very much.